Oh, hey guys. Cole here with Classic Mini DIY. Thanks for joining me. Oh, this is my new garage. I guess you guys haven't seen that yet. Oh, and that over there? That's Bad Wolf. You guys haven't seen that either? Dang. I think I need to give you guys a little update. It's been a little too long. Hey everybody, Cole here with Classic Mini DIY, and welcome back to the next episode of the Restomod Mini. It has been a little while since our last episode. In fact, I think it's been a few months, and the car obviously looks a lot different, which I'll show you guys here in a minute, but we're also in a new space. I recently moved into a new house, and this is my new two-car garage. Now you're probably looking at it right now and thinking, Cole, this garage is unfinished, and you'd be right. That's because I haven't finished it yet. It might seem crazy, moving from a perfectly well-built garage that was purpose-made for Classic Mini DIY, but it was time for us to move and find a home that suited us a little bit better, and in the process, we found a garage that also suited Classic Mini DIY a little bit better. Now, we're gonna be getting into remodeling this garage. It's gonna be a whole process, and I may or may not make some videos about it. But as you can see, we've got electrical run already and some lighting. There's still lots to do for the garage, but I don't think you guys are actually here for the garage. I think you're here to learn about Bad Wolf and what's been going on with this car. Now, it may be pretty obvious to some of you that the car has been to the sandblaster. It's got an etch primer on it right now. This green color isn't actually the color of the car or what it's going to end up as, but the etch primer just happened to be green as well. And the car has been to the sandblaster and back. They did some metal work. I ended up having to take a small break from the metal work due to the budget. It is very expensive to do some of these things on this car, and I am going to tackle some of the metal work myself, which should be pretty interesting. I've not done any metal work before, at least not at this scale. I've built brackets and I know how to MIG and I know how to TIG, but I'm not very good at any of it. So it should be a pretty fun learning experience to go through that. But to give you guys a little bit of a recap of the things that have been done to the car so far, as you can see, went to the sandblaster. They blasted the entire exterior of the car, top, bottom, all of it, as well as some of the internal parts. However, they did not do the floor, the trunk, or the seat back, anything that had sound deadening on it. And unfortunately, before I got this over to the shop, we were moving and I didn't have enough time to get that sound deadening off before it went to the blaster. But now that it's all off, I'm thinking I might actually bring it back to them and have them do a little bit more blasting on the inside so that we can have a nice clean surface to work on and weld on. Now, the metal work that has been done to the car is all around the structural elements and exterior parts that I did not feel at all comfortable doing myself. Namely, the rear window sills have now been fixed. They are perfect solid metal now as opposed to Swiss cheese that they were before. We have addressed a ton of the structural issues in the front bulkhead where the subframe mounts. And then there has been some spot treatment and hole filling across the whole car. It has been a lot of work, as well as the mounts for the rear roll cage. Those now have a solid new metal mount, so it's a lot more secure and a lot safer. Now, moving on to what we need to do to the car next. The next step is going to be going through the car and making sure that I have a lot of my holes pre-drilled for my wiring and for my wiring loom. I want to make sure that I do as much of that as I can before it goes back to the blaster, or more specifically before it goes back to paint. So we're going to be tackling a little bit of that today, and I'm very, very excited to share with you guys what I'm going to be installing on the car. I talked about it a little bit in the first episode, but it has finally arrived. Let's jump over to the workbench. I'm going to show you guys exactly what I am talking about, and I'm going to start mapping out some of the wiring in. Now, I am incredibly excited to share with you guys the next bit about this build, and to start kind of thinking through some of the wiring challenges and some of the things that we need to think about with the wiring on the car. Now, as you guys know, if you watched the first episode of this series, Haltech ECUs is actually partnering with me on this episode and this whole series, and we are installing one of their brand new Haltech Nexus R3s. This is incredibly exciting. This came out about, I don't know, 2 weeks ago as of filming this, and this is one of their vehicle control units. Now, I say vehicle control unit because it's different than an ECU. An ECU is an engine control unit, and that is purely focused on controlling the sensors, the various functions, and the things you need in order to run your engine. A vehicle control unit does more than that. It combines both a power distribution system and an ECU, all in one single, really compact and nicely packaged system. Now, you can see here there is a ground and a hot wire, a 12-volt feed here. This is important because this unit is actually going to offer me power distribution, like I mentioned just a moment ago. And what that means is that I can use this to control circuits in my car. So things like the fuel pump, the ignition system. I can control headlights, wipers, all sorts of different things. Literally all of the electronics in the car are going to be controlled via this and a companion PD16, which is their power distribution module that's standalone. So these two are going to work together in order to power the entire car. There is not going to be 1 ounce of the original wiring harness from the Classic Mini in there. And all of this is going to be much more compact and much more reliable than the original wiring systems. So that was a lot of information, but let's break it down into its 2 pieces here. Now, on one side, we have the VCU. This is going to combine all the features of my Haltech Elite 750 that I ran in the car previously, plus a litany of other features, which is going to be really exciting, and we'll get into those once we dive into the wiring. This is also going to power some of the primary circuits on the engine. The way I'm going to break this out is based on how many power outputs this has available to it. So the VCU, I'm going to keep all of the engine-specific things powered from this unit. I think that it's smart to keep everything isolated and mapped into this single unit here. So the fuel pump, the ignition system, the injectors, and then a few other sensors and things of that nature are all going to be powered by this unit right here. This is going to make sure that all of the things that the engine needs to run are on the same unit and on the same processing unit. This isn't necessary, but it helps with a logical breakdown of the 2 pieces. And then this PD16 is simply a power distribution module. They communicate to each other over what's called a CAN interface. This is a CAN bus interface, and basically this is a little wire that is totally magic, and it's going to get plugged into this little CAN hub right here. So you'll get this plugged in, and then we'll plug in the PD16, and this is how the VCU is going to be able to communicate and control this. Now, this I'm going to reserve for all of the functions of the car that are unrelated to the engine. So this is going to power things like your wiper motor and the headlights, the turn signals, interior lights, gauges, all of those different things are going to be powered from this unit. That way, if there's ever a fault or an issue with any of the circuits that are unrelated to the engine, I will get a clear display on the front of this PD16 to indicate which circuit is failing. That's not to say that the Nexus R3 doesn't have that functionality as well, but as I said, it's important to break these things down logically so that it's easier to maintain for you in the future. Now, there have been a few questions about this setup and why I chose this over something else. And there are a few reasons that I want to go through why I chose this. And no, it's not just because Haltech is sponsoring this episode. I actually actively reached out to them because I believe in their products, and these are the things that I want in my car. But Haltech has a wide range of different ECUs, different VCUs, and at the moment there are 2 VCUs, the R3 and the R5. And then there are a few Elite Series ECUs, the 750, the 1000, 1500, and 2500, I think are their current lineup. Now the Nexus R3 has a ton of functionality, even some things that I likely will not be using in my car. And for those of you who are approaching this project and maybe don't want to totally rewire your car, or maybe you want to do this a little bit more piecemeal, to get effectively the same functionality that I am looking for out of this R3, which is knock control, the ability to run a drive-by-wire system, all of my sensors, and the injection system, you very easily can accomplish that with an Elite 1500. Now, expanding on that, and of course building in the wiring system, that is why I went with the R3, because I want both of these to be a power distribution system. This PD16 alone was not going to be enough outputs for me to power the whole car, nor was the R3. So they need to be paired together in order to do that for my application. Now, the alternative would be to step up to the Nexus R5, which is effectively the entirety of a PD16 in a VCU and all of the additional things that come with the VCU. That would have been, in my opinion, a little overkill for the Classic Mini, at least for all of the needs and electronic needs in it, but it definitely would work, and you can use it and shape it to be exactly the way you want that application to be in your car. Now, there are some really excellent ECU companies out there. I'd be remiss to say that I believe Haltech is truly the best option on the market right now. They offer everything in an extremely easy to use software system that accompanies these units. But if your budget is a little bit lower, or you are trying to, do a little bit more DIY stuff, there's some pretty cool options out there like Speeduino and Megasquirt. Those are some really cool options for Classic Minis as well. Now, I do want to mention that all of the Haltech stuff I'm doing here, and my maps, everything like that, I do offer those for sale for very, very reasonable prices on my site. If you want to pick one of these up for your Haltech ECU, head over to my website. You'll see all of those listed there. There's a link in my description. I've also ported all of those base maps over to various other ECU manufacturers if you don't already have a Haltech in your car. Now, to accompany these two units that we have here, I'm going to set them off to the side. I have also purchased the premium wiring harness. This is a universal wiring harness. Effectively, it is all of the connectors already pinned and ready to use. You can see here we've got our two CAN interfaces, our high output power distribution interfaces, our two main connecting pins here. These are waterproof connectors, very, very clean and nice. And they put the heat shrink on here, but don't heat it down, so you can depin anything you don't need. And then, of course, all of the unterminated ends. This is what's called a flying lead harness, or at least that's what Haltech calls it. And all of these are every single pin that is available for the Haltech ECU or VCUs. And you can see here a huge collection of wires. Each one of these is 2.5 meters long. Now, as you can imagine, for a Classic Mini, that is more than enough length. The cool thing is that in this setup, I'm likely going to be running all of this setup either in the trunk or under the back seat. I haven't quite decided where I want to run these yet, and that's going to be part of some upcoming episodes. But this is going to be pretty much all of the wiring you will need for your Classic Mini. This is the harness for the Nexus R3, but I will have another PD16 specific harness that's going to come in for this as well. That way I can easily plug these two devices in together. There's not going to be any fuss or any hardship in that way. And then all of those leads and all of those connections can be run out to the different places in the car. Can chop those down exactly to length, and then we are pretty much ready to roll. Now, if this is something that you're looking to put in your car, it's something that you think you want to use or set up in a brand new project car that you're working on, I have links in my description. They are not affiliate links. All of them are straight to Haltech's website, and you can pick up a Nexus R3, Elite 1500, PD16, whatever you need through those links, and they're going to be happy to help you out. So if you have any questions about any of this, feel free to post that in the comment section below. I really love talking about this stuff. So truly, if you have any questions, I want to help you guys, whether it is these ECUs or you're running a fuel injection system in your car that's already present, whatever it is, ask them. I want to know them. But that is going to wrap up this episode. I know it was a little bit of a shorty one, and I didn't cover a whole lot of work on the car. A lot of the stuff that's going on right now is kind of in other shops, other people are doing right now. And once it gets back into our workshop, we'll tackle it, we'll get to it. I'm not trying to just extend this project as long as I can, but things take time. So I appreciate you guys being patient with me and waiting for all of these things to move through. And if you like what I'm doing or you have any suggestions about this project, feel free to also post those in the comment section below. I'm in the planning phase, so there's lots that is still up in the air. And I love to see you guys' opinions. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you joining me today. And until I see you on the next one, you know the drill. Enjoy those minis and motor on. See you guys.